Today we are going to talk about some advice that my grandmother gave my mother. She has a group, my mother has a group that discusses different topics every week, and they meet together. And my mother decided that as one of the topics, she would talk about the advice that my grandmother gave her. Life is about building memories. If you come to something and you are not sure you want to remember it, don't do it. That was the advice of my grandmother to my mother. So we'll talk about this in the talk. We'll talk about how it relates to Buddhism. We'll talk about Hiri, Ottappa. We'll talk about the Deva-Dhamma-Jātaka. And of course, we'll talk about a personal story and maybe some advice for what you should do when some of these things happen. So let's start. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. Namo tasse bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhase. So my grandmother, she said, I'll repeat it again, life is about building memories. If you come to something and you are not sure you want to remember it, don't do it. She didn't say this, but we could say the opposite. Life is about building memories. If you come to something and you think it will be a good memory, you know that it's wholesome. You know that it will have good results. You should do it because you want to build those memories. And that was the advice that my grandmother gave to my mother. The topic was actually, what advice have you received that is important to you, and do you still follow it? And my mother's memory for that topic was my grandmother's advice about building memories. If you think that it might not be good to remember, don't do it. And the opposite, which I'm saying now, if you think it'll be a good, wholesome outcome and a lasting, wholesome memory, yeah, you should do it. We are always making memories. Good ones we want to remember, and bad ones we don't want to remember. In Buddhism, we talk about Kamma. Actually, when we're building memories, we are reflecting about and remembering about the things we've said and the things we have done. This is about building Kamma, and that Kamma has energy, and that energy, we could say, sticks around and follows you. Whatever, we can't really say there's a you, but we are made and born of our speech and our actions. Maybe I'll talk about that later a little bit. The most important thing that you have to know is that there's wrong view and there's right view. And knowing that there are people who believe that some unwholesome things are good and that wholesome things are bad. And they give you advice in the wrong direction, telling you doing this bad thing is wrong, and doing this bad thing is right, and they say that doing this good thing is wrong. Someone might encourage you to reciprocate, to give back anger to someone. That this should never be done. Someone may say that if you don't reciprocate anger, that this is wrong. But you should always work with loving kindness, knowing that wholesome things are good and knowing that unwholesome things are bad. How do we know what is good? How do we know what is bad? There is a Jataka story called Deva-Dhamma-Jātaka. And it might be a little strange, so I'll really cut this story short. But there was this, we could say this, they call it like a water sprite or some type of water demon who's in a lake. And this water demon wanted to know, what is God like? What is God like? And if you couldn't answer, you were taken prisoner, we could say. And the Bodhisattva, our Bodhisattva, he was able to answer, Hiryotapa sampanna sukha dhamma samahita santo saparisa loke Deva-Dhammati ucharati. What does that mean? Endowed with shame and fear of wrongdoing, established in the pure Dhamma, being peaceful, good persons in the world are called having the nature of the gods. A Hiryotapa is a very common, how do we say, there are two common terms or qualities, even chaitasikas we could say. There are chaitasikas that are mentioned by the Buddha. A sense of moral shame, self-shame, and a fear of wrongdoing. These are wholesome. In America, we'd say that if you're shameful, this is not good. In Western psychology, we say having shame is no good. But in Buddhism, we say that having a sense of self-shame is good. For instance, we could say, you should go into town properly covered. As a monk, we properly cover both shoulders as I am now. Actually, if I want to give a Dhamma talk, I'm inside the monastery, I can have one shoulder open. Some people have asked, why are some monks giving Dhamma talks with both shoulders covered? Why are Dhamma talks being done with one shoulder covered? The rule is if you are inside the monastery, you can have one shoulder covered. Actually, you can go less than that, but I won't get into the details. But you can have one shoulder, normally speaking, you can have one shoulder covered. And when you're in the village, when you're outside of the monastery, outside of your residential home, you should have both shoulders covered. So for me, this is part of the rules, the monk rules. And there are two reasons why I follow this rule. One is I know I'm a monk, I know this is a rule, and I don't want to break this rule for myself. I want to know that I am following the rule, because if I break the rule, I'll feel bad. I'll feel like I'm doing something wrong. We could say, it's adding to that memory that I don't want to remember. Or we could say, it is bad karma for me. And that karma will find me and follow me. And so we don't want to do anything wrong as monks. The second reason is we don't want other people to see us like that. One is we want to be respectably presented. We want to have our shoulders covered because this is the proper way. It is the proper way for other people to see us as monks. Also, we could get criticized by our fellow monks who know the rules, or by lay people who know the rules. And so, when it's external, this is ottappa. And when it's internal, this is hiri ottappa. They're usually paired together. Hiri is the shame that arises internally. You're self-regulating, we could say. And ottappa is the fear of wrongdoing. My father, he's a pure atheist, and he believes that religions in some ways are good because it makes people afraid and it gives order to the world. And so he believes that basic morality is good. We should all follow that. And he says that some people need religions and some people don't. Because the religions, they preach about morality, basic morality to some extent. Some religions allow certain immoral acts, killing animals, etc. But in Buddhism, we don't allow that at all, or recommend it at all, because this gives bad karma. So we say that hiri ottappa is the protector of the world, because if you have your self-shame, you do things that you know is, let's say, humane. You want to be a humane person, right? Makes you human. And you also want to have others see you as a humane person, as a good human. This is very important. And if everybody follows this and does what is wholesome, does what is right, we can say that the world would be a happier place. And that's why these two qualities are called the protectors of the world. We also don't want to have remorse about things that we have done. Again, this is more directly related to memory. Now I'm here at the International Institute of Theravāda, and we have to memorize many things. We have to study many things. They want us to memorize the Dhammapada. The whole thing, we're doing it. And I happen to be studying verse number 67 and 68, going in order, usually 7 or 8 at a time. And this week I have these verses, which are directly related to the topic that I'm speaking about now, or the topic that my mother said that she will bring to her group. What is that verse? Natam kammam katam sadhu yam katva anutappati yasa asumukko rodham vipakam patisevati tancha kammam katam sadhu yam katva nanutappati yasa patito sumeno vipakam patisevati. The Dhammapada is a book of poetry or sayings that the Buddha had uttered after some events that took place. It's one of the most popular books in Buddhism. It's been translated, I think, more than any other book in the world, or people make that claim. There are many translations in the English language alone. What do those verses mean, unless you understand Pali? Not good is the deed if one regrets having done it. Weeping with a tearful face, one reaps its results. That deed is well done if one does not regret having done it, receiving its results with joy and pleasure. Let me repeat that. Not good is the deed if one regrets having done it. Weeping with a tearful face, one reaps its results. That deed that is well done if one does not regret having done it, receives its result with joy and pleasure. How does that sound compared to my grandmother's advice? You are constantly building new memories. When you come to a point in your life where you can do something or not do something, and you're not sure you want to remember what you're going to do, meaning that you know it'll be bad or you have doubt that it could be bad, don't do it. In the same way, the Buddha himself said that if you do something good, you will get the good results. And so you should reflect on that, whether you're going to get the joy of what you did, or whether you're going to get unhappiness for the results of what you did. Good will give good, and bad will give bad. Whether it's Buddhism or some other religion, we have the golden rule. Maybe you've heard it before. Do unto others as you want others to do unto you. This is said in many different religions and languages, across cultures, all over the world. Whether it's Judaism, Christianity, Islam, Baha'i faith, Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Confucianism, or Taoism, in one form or another, they say the golden rule: do unto others as you want others to do unto you. When you're at the crossroads and you have a choice to do something, and you're not sure, it's a good memory to have if you do it. Don't do it. If you know it'll be a happy and wholesome action that will give you a happy and wholesome memory, you should do it. This is all about what you say and what you do. This is kamma that you make verbally and kamma that you make with bodily action. And we also have thoughts. We have thoughts all the time. All the time. The mind is going again and again and again. What if you know someone doesn't like you? What do? A lot of the times, naturally, you don't want to like them back. But this is a place where you can have mindfulness and understand that you should radiate loving kindness to that person. Maybe even say good things about that person. Reflect on their qualities, their good qualities, and speak about that. Speak about those qualities. Even do something nice for that person. Even give a gift. This is one of the ways that we can control our minds. Because there are three ways, actually, that we accumulate kamma. Through the three doors, we say, through the mind, through the speech, and bodily action. If we have anger, and we do things with anger and speak things with anger, we say mind is the forerunner of all states. So the mind is a cause for creating kamma. It is the forerunner. So we should always try to control our mind and know whether we're acting with a wholesome mind, a mind of loving kindness or helping, compassion, with right view. Some people might think that mercy killing is with compassion, but that's wrong view, we could say. So you always have a loving kindness and wholesome mind. And try to act and speak in that way. And that's very important. And we have different memories. And recently, I was discussing with someone I met in 2013. I was visiting Amaravati, and I was visiting Chithurst. Actually, it was something I arranged so that my parents could see me at a monastery. They could see me, we could say, on my own turf. I've seen them a couple of times visiting home. It's very rare I visit home. I think only 3 times in the past 23 years that I've gone to my parents' house. But it's very difficult for my parents to go all the way to Asia. And so I thought, maybe I could meet my parents halfway. They could come to England and I could go to England. And they could see me at a monastery that's adopted a lot of sort of Western flavors for Theravāda Buddhism. And so I was there, and I was mostly just living there. My parents just came, I think, for 1 or 2 days, for a little bit. And then they did their tourist stuff in England because they have made a trip out of it. And then they brought me to another monastery that I wanted to visit, which is very famous as well. And then they went back home, and then later I also went back. At that time, I think it was Myanmar. And so I was from a different tradition, and I was visiting there, and one of the monks, he came to me and he said to me, "Bhante, how do you do the Kapiyam Krohi?" And I told him, I said, well, Kapiyam Krohi, it's a basic thing in the monk world. So monks are not allowed to eat damaged plants. We're not allowed to damage plants. And part of not damaging plants is actually seeds. And seeds can grow. And so if a seed can grow, then we're not supposed to eat that food. Unless something special happens and the layperson comes with a knife and we say something special, we say Kapiyam Krohi, and they cut with the knife and they say Kapiyam Bhante. And then it's allowable for us to eat. It's one of the ways we're able to do that. If there's no one to do that for us, we cannot eat it. We either have to expel the seeds, like we have to cut out the seeds, or we have to spit out the seeds. It's better not to even put them in the mouth. So, it's best not to eat anything with the seeds if we don't have anyone to do this special procedure. And he asked me about this. And I was there, I was eating their food all the time, and I thought I could see them with the lay people, and they would cut the fruit, and they would cut the vegetables, the raw vegetables that wasn't cooked. To cook seeds don't have to have this done to it. And I thought everything was done properly, and it was a little surprising that he was asking me about this procedure. He says, what if the vegetables or the fruit is already cut up? Do you have to do it? And I remember a long time ago. Yes, I remember when I was a layperson in training, I remember that I was told from that tradition that if it's cut up or damaged already beforehand, then you don't need to do it. But that's not really how the rule works. It has to be done with a layperson. If these seeds can grow, then this is a living plant. It's a bija, they call it. And so you need to do this Kapiyam Krohi, whether it's being cut into cubes or whether it's whole. And so what they were doing is they were doing it only for the whole fruit there, or the whole vegetables. Let's say tomatoes, or tomatoes, as they say over there. And so I remembered that when I was a lay person, and I almost ordained in that tradition, I remember learning, and we were going through the book, the Vinaya book, the Buddhist monastic code, and I remember someone asked about that from maybe 13 years prior, 12 or 13 years earlier than that. I somehow had that memory come up. And I said, I said, they're not doing, huh? I said, this is not right. They need to do. And yeah, don't do it. Because he was asking me, because I'm from a different tradition, and he knows that it's quite strict in the way that we follow. We shouldn't say strict. There's following vinaya and there's not following vinaya. But we don't pick and choose in terms of being strict. We don't pick and choose or put our own interpretations. Very rare. Unless there's what we call a great standard. It's very rare for us to put our own opinions on it, and we follow what the commentaries say as the interpretations, rather than putting our own interpretations on it. It's only like if there's some modern thing. I gave a talk about a bowl, like stainless steel. It's not mentioned whether stainless steel is allowed or not. And so we've decided as pretty much as a whole that stainless steel bowls are allowed. So otherwise, we don't put any interpretations on it. And so I said, I should say something. Because I also wanted to eat the vegetables. I was eating this unknowingly. I was eating the vegetables, not knowing that they were skipping over the fruits and vegetables that were already cut up. And there was salads there. There was good salads. And this would perhaps spoil my meal, because when it's not done correctly, you don't enjoy. You cannot take it anymore if you fully know. And it was something I didn't want to, a memory, or we could say, or an action that I didn't want to do. But it's very simple. We could just say, can you say this in front of the lay people for cut up fruit as well? And should I do that? I can do that for you. And he says, no, don't say anything. It's better just to skip. And he himself knew himself that this was not right, and maybe he was skipping all this time. And he knew that maybe it just wasn't the right time to speak about this to the senior monks, something that has been done for a long time. And I reflected on it, and I decided, I can live without certain foods. Especially I'm just a guest. I shouldn't be saying what they should and should not be doing. I also have to be careful about advice, the vinaya advice, the monastic rule advice about what I should do as a guest, because they're going to have different interpretations. Different monasteries have different interpretations. And I thought it was wise advice, and I decided to just do without. Just do without. So after some time, I left. I went to this other monastery nearby. It's called Chithurst. And I met someone there, and now he's a very senior monk, and we've kept in contact. And on my YouTube feed or homepage or whatever, I saw something with the same monk that had asked me this question. And so I clicked on it. I thought, well, now it's 10 years past. He may be a senior monk. Let's see what he has to say. But it was actually someone from Australia. It was someone different. It wasn't particularly anything I wanted to see, but it reminded me of that monk. And so I wrote a letter, wrote an email to this monk, and I said, I remember such and such monk. I wonder how he's doing. He says, he's doing wonderful. He's in such and such country, and he went to another country for training, and now he's at another country, and he's going to come back soon, I think, if I remember correctly. And I said to him, a long time ago, he gave me this advice, and I thought it was wise, about just not saying anything and doing without the kapiyam karohi. And I thought it was wise, and so I didn't do anything. And I told him the whole story about this whole thing. And this monk, he also remembers this that they had a meeting later on. They had a meeting about this kapiyam karohi, and cutting the fruit and making it allowable. And I asked them, these are emails that go one day by one day, one day by one day, sometimes a couple days. We're in a different time zone, and they have different times that they check the email, etc. I said, well, how did it go? What was the outcome of the meeting? And he says, oh yeah, it's just like you do, you know. If it can grow, you should do it. And they had a meeting at the right time, at the right and proper time, when he felt it was the best time and the best way to go about doing it. And so he didn't just casually say in some unprepared way, but he said he waited for a proper time, maybe some special meeting where you're allowed to say some things, and they had a meeting on it, and then they decided that they should do it the proper way. I don't know if this was other monasteries or whatever, but he told me that, and I said to him, you know, it's quite funny that 10 years have passed. More than 10 years have passed. It was recent. Actually, it might be a little less than, no, it's more than 10 years. 10 years have passed, and we're remembering this story, both of us, both different sides of the story, as if it were yesterday. And that's how memories are. That's how karma is. And today I was telling another monk that we both go for alms on Saturday and Sunday. And I told him I was going to give a Dhamma talk. And I told him, you know, that we have these memories, and they come back to us. Universally, it's known that at the time of death, those who have near-death experiences, they all say, nearly 100%, I guess, they all say that they have their whole life flash before their eyes. It's like a meme. It's an expression. When you feel like you're going to die, sometimes you say, my whole life flashed before my eyes. Actually, for people who have near-death experiences, literally, their whole life replays back to them. Everything they did, they experience it, often from the other person's perspective. If they hit someone, they could feel that pain. If they said something bad, they could feel those words. And they experience it from the other person's point of view. They know what they did throughout their whole entire life. And I was telling him, you know, in Buddhism, we say that all the different karmas that you've done in your past, when you're dying, they all try to rush out the door at the same time. And only one karma gets selected. And that karma starts the next life. And it was very funny. As I was saying it, this thought occurred to me. I said, you know, this thought just occurred to me, that it's exactly like, and he finished my sentence, the sperm that gets to penetrate the egg. There are millions of sperms, and one succeeds. In the same way, according to Abhidhamma, there's one karma that will be taken as the object at the near-death moment from all other karmas. One karma will be grabbed, we could say, by the mind. And this will carry you through to the next life, to that, we say, patisandhi moment, to that rebirth-linking consciousness. Know that there is self-shame and there is fear of wrongdoing, and that these are the protectors of the world. And don't do things that you know you will regret later on. In general, do unto others as you want others to do unto you. This is the universal rule across all religions. There was that monk that asked me about the making of fruits and vegetables allowable. And I thought it was wise to just do nothing. Even though I think it wouldn't have been a big deal if I requested that they do this according to such way so I could eat the vegetables, or if I could do it with a layperson. If I could do it with a samanera privately, take a novice monk and privately do it. But it's best not to do anything, because other people might have doubt and other people might speak up and it might cause a lot of waves. And so there was a proper time and place. And that monk, he waited for that proper time and place to take care of it. And of course, we have memories, and people's lives flash before their eyes. The whole memory of what they have done, what they have said, and even thought while doing those actions. Because there's mind associated with all speech, and there's mind associated with all actions. If you do good things, if you do bad things, you go down. If you do okay things, and that karma gets selected, you stay the same. You can be human. And if you do very good things, and that karma gets selected, you can go up. If you have samadhi, you can go to the Brahma realms. And if you attain full liberation, arhatship, when you die, nothing gets selected. There's no more arising of mind and matter. And so I hope that you can use this as a practice, and knowing, being mindful of what is good and what is bad, and whether you should speak and whether you should act in a certain way. And through that, having a calm mind without remorse, because you're always doing the right thing, and you can attain samadhi, and you can see the realities as they are, mind and matter and the causes, and fully penetrating and seeing anicca, dukkha, and anatta, impermanence, suffering, and non-self, so that you can reach Nibbana Supreme. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.